Good evening and welcome to Newsnight. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. In the show up ahead, special focus on External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar's 5-day visit to Israel. Israel is all set to join the India-led International Solar Alliance. The visit is expected to bring the strategic partners closer. In other news, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's visit to United States as she shares the India story of reforms with the business leaders. Meanwhile, back home, the security situation in Jammu and Kashmir, particularly in the context of targeted killing of civilians in the region. All that and more. First, the top stories at this hour. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar holds bilateral meeting with alternate Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Israel, Yair Lapid. Discusses wide range of regional and global issues. Israel to join International Solar Alliance. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman holds meeting with business leaders in the US, speaks on India's robust economic recovery and the road ahead. Investors reaffirm trust in India's recovery, say India will become an important destination for investment for multilateral corporations. China's economy hit at its slowest pace of growth in a year in the third quarter, hurt by power shortages. Despite drop in growth, government says it is confident that targets will be met. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh addresses Naval Commanders Conference, says as a responsible maritime stakeholder, India supports consensus-based principles and a peaceful, open rule based on stable world order. Envision Indian Ocean region. Home Minister Amit Shah chairs meeting of police chiefs of all states to discuss security situation, important aspects related to internal security, current challenges and strategies, including Jammu and Kashmir, discussed at the meeting. Heavy rains in many parts of Uttarakhand. Char Dham Yatra halted. 4 people killed in different weather-related incidents. Chief Minister Pushkar Dhami closely monitoring the situation. Red alert in Kerala as water level breaches danger mark across 10 dams in the state. BJP hits out at Congress over the issue of Jammu and Kashmir and for allegedly insulting Sardar Patel. BJP spokesperson says Congress aims to carry forward legacy of Nehru-Gandhi family only. And India strengthens fight against COVID-19. Only 13,596 new cases reported in the last 24 hours. Vaccination drive crosses the 98 crore mark. Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia says nation fast marching towards 100 crore mark. Prime Minister congratulates Uttarakhand as all eligible population in the state get first dose of vaccine. First up, Israel is going to join International Solar Alliance. India-Israel Free Trade Agreement (FTA) is set to begin soon. The negotiations, that is. Those were some of the highlights of External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar's ongoing 5-day visit to Israel. Dr. Jaishankar held talks with Israel's alternate Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Israel, Yair Lapid. The two leaders outlined diverse areas of cooperation, including mutual recognition of COVID vaccination. Earlier, External Affairs Minister hailed the close people-to-people ties between the two nations during his special interaction with the Indian Jewish community in Israel. With the aim to further strengthen ties with Israel, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is on 5-day visit to Israel. On Monday, he held a productive bilateral meeting with the alternate Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Israel, Yair Lapid. The two leaders discussed a wide range of regional and global issues. In his remarks after the meeting, the minister expressed pleasure at Israel joining the International Solar Alliance. The two sides agreed to resume FTA negotiations next month. The leaders agreed in principle on mutual recognition of COVID vaccination certification for the two countries.
First of all, let me say what a great pleasure it is to see Israel joining the International Solar Alliance. I think you bring a lot of value to the table. And as we approach COP26, it's very important that in our growing agenda, green growth, green economy is given its due place. As we came to this visit, our officials have actually agreed on the resumption of the India-Israel free trade negotiations. The talks will start in November, and they're very confident that they would be able to conclude the negotiations by next June.
Jaishankar also paid homage to the victims of Holocaust at Memorial to the Victims of the Holocaust, Yad Vashem. Jaishankar in a tweet said that this memorial is a testimony to the human spirit of resilience and strengthens our resolve to fight evil. External Affairs Minister also unveiled a plaque commemorating the Bhutan grove planted by Sarvodaya workers in 1960. Earlier, Dr. S. Jaishankar held a meeting with Israeli Chamber of Commerce and Innovation Ecosystem, appreciating their visible enthusiasm for doing more partnerships with India. Jaishankar stressed that many post-COVID priorities, including digital, health, agriculture, and green growth, are natural areas for collaboration. He also encouraged Israeli businesses to focus more deeply on Indian opportunities and take advantage of our business-friendly policies. Dr. S. Jaishankar also met with the Indian Jewish community in Israel and hailed their manifold contribution to the ties between the two countries. The minister expressed confidence that the Indian Jewish community in Israel will bring the two countries even closer together in the coming years. The minister expressed sentiments previously echoed by Prime Minister Modi that India's relationship with its Jewish diaspora community in Israel is one of mutual trust and friendship. He added that the expansion of innovation and trade partnership between our two knowledge economies is the need of the hour. He hailed the similarities in cultural traditions between the two countries.
Next year marks the 30th anniversary of full diplomatic relations between India and Israel. India is celebrating the 75th year of our own independence. In 2023, Israel too would be celebrating the 75th year of its independence. These occasions are significant milestones to start new voyages and to cover new horizons.
Dr. Jaishankar also highlighted the community's contribution in enriching India's literature and arts. The minister said that signature tune of All India Radio had been composed by an Indian Jew. External Affairs Minister also received a copy of the book Bombay-Mumbai City Heritage Walks by Dr. Shaul Sapir. Dr. Sapir, an Indian-born scholar, was a professor at the prestigious Hebrew University of Jerusalem. Bureau Report, Tita India. And in Newsnight tonight, we are talking about India-Israel relations in focus, new era of cooperation between the two nations. There'll be a special guest joining us to take the conversation forward. Former Indian Ambassador to Israel, Ambassador Arun Kumar Singh. Good evening and welcome, sir, to the program. The recent years, we've witnessed a new high in the relations between India and Israel. To begin this conversation, what value do you see these two countries, the relation holds in the present world order, to understand the importance of the visit of external affairs ministers to Israel?
And as has been mentioned in several of the conversations that took place in Israel today and yesterday, this is a relationship that was sort of given initially a new orientation in 1992 when India established full diplomatic relations with Israel. Before that, it had recognized the state of Israel, but had not established full diplomatic relations. And since then, consistently, the relationship consolidated in trade, investment, technology, defense cooperation. But all of it was done really without too much public projection of the nature of the relationship, because I think there was some anxiety in the political circles in India, whether some aspects of the relationship may come under criticism, either from the left wing in Indian politics or others. Or also sometimes there was a concern about some of how the other Arab countries may react to the deepening of the India-Israel relationship, although Egypt and Jordan had established diplomatic relations with Israel. But since 2014, what we have seen is that in a sense, the relationship has become much more open. There has been regular exchange of high-level visits. The Indian Prime Minister visited Israel in 2017, and that was the first time that any Indian Prime Minister had visited Israel. The President visited Israel in 2016, again the first time that any Indian President had visited Israel. And then the Israeli Prime Minister had come to India with a short span of time following the visit of the Indian Prime Minister. So I think we are seeing much more of high-level engagement and high-level exchanges, and it is in that framework that we should see the extended visit of the External Affairs Minister and the kind of meetings he's had with the Indian origin community, with Indologists, with business, with officials, showing the depth of stakeholders who are involved in this relationship.
Right. And so in the diverse areas of cooperation that you mentioned, as being knowledge economies, both countries cooperate in the areas of technology and innovation in particular, which is also the driving force in the manner nations are rising in the 21st century. How do you see that area of partnership as a particular hallmark for the two nations?
So that is going to be a very, very important area of partnership because, in India itself, we are now giving a lot of emphasis to technology, to innovation, to new and emerging technologies. Now, of course, we are a country of 1.3 billion people. Israel is a country of 7 million people. And in terms of startups in the world, Israel has the second largest number of startups in the world after the United States. So that's the level of innovation that's happening in Israel. And I remember when I was ambassador there, once there was a headline in the newspaper that Israel under threat from India. And so that surprised me. What is this threat? And then when you read, they said India is catching up with Israel in the number of startups. So I think technology partnership for innovation will be a very critical element because this is an area where Israel is very strong. And also, I used to make the argument talking to Israel businesses that while they are very strong in technology, when they want to scale up in an engineering sense or an economic sense for market opportunity, they need to partner with India, which has a much larger market base. And so many Israeli companies who are strong in technology have a much larger presence in India in terms of the number of people who are employed in the business compared to what they're doing in Israel, although the core technology development is taking place in Israel. So certainly this is going to be a very, very important area of partnership, given the strengths that Israel brings in the area of technology and innovation.
Right. And talking about partnership in technology, a big news that came in was how Israel is set to join International Solar Alliance. And that would be a force multiplier, Ambassador Singh. But meanwhile, also let me quickly welcome Professor Harshvardhan Pant as well. Welcome, sir, to the program. Yes, Ambassador Singh, if you could tell us about the manner in which it could be a big step forward.
So I think the International Solar Alliance, again, is a signal that climate change, area related to climate change, climate technology, climate finance will be an important area for partnership. And here again, Israel has things to offer. They are very strong in some of these technologies. And they're also very strong, for example, in wastewater utilization, recycling of wastewater, efficiency in water usage, drip irrigation technology they have pioneered, and that's something that has come to India also from Israel. So climate technologies, climate finance will be an important area for cooperation between India and Israel. And so that's what this signals.
Right. Professor Pant, as we map 3 decades of ties between India and Israel and the momentum that the recent years have witnessed, how do you see the direction in which the relations seem to be heading towards as External Affairs Minister is visiting Israel?
Well, I think this is a milestone in the relationship, of course, that we are celebrating 3 decades of this very important relationship. Also at a time when I think India's diplomacy in the Middle East, throughout Middle East, has been very proactive. And we have seen different kinds of engagement with different kinds of partners in the region. So as we look back at the last 3 decades, I think there is much to celebrate and there is much to commend about this relationship. Both sides have invested a significant diplomatic capital on this relationship. And despite different governments and changes, ups and downs, we have seen significant capital being invested here. And I think Prime Minister Modi's visit in 2017 was very significant because it certainly raised the bar as far as this relationship was concerned, making the strategic dimension of this relationship public, and also bringing in new elements, making it, as Ambassador Singh was talking earlier, new areas of cooperation in technology, in climate. I think those areas today deserve to be at the heart of this relationship, and they are becoming the center point of this relationship. So I think as we look back and as we celebrate this milestone, there are new areas to conquer, and there are new areas and there are new significant convergences that still need to be embellished. So I think this is an important visit, and perhaps as we move forward and celebrate the 3 decades of our engagement, we need to also map out what these new areas are going to be and how the 2 countries are going to chart a new course. And of course, we are hearing about a free trade agreement deadline being given, and Israel joining Solar Alliance, and so on and so forth. I think the wider canvas, which is expanding at a very fast pace, is something to be celebrated, and I think there's something to commend. And I think both the sides will have to work doubly hard to ensure that the momentum is not lost, and it's therefore gratifying to see Foreign Minister there, and of course putting in heft behind this very, very important partnership.
Right, and Professor Pant, in the context of Israel joining International Solar Alliance, the Minister also in his remarks spoke about how it augurs well for the COP26 meeting and the partnerships that the world is looking for, especially in green initiatives, with Israel coming on board with India.
Oh, absolutely. I think, without Israel, when we are talking of International Solar Alliance and the engagements, I think it did not look complete. So now with Israel inside the tent, I think the International Solar Alliance, and as we were discussing earlier, the kind of, heft and the kind of innovation that it brings on climate, on water, on how they have harvested wastewater and how they have looked at in new kinds of irrigation technologies. I think all that will be very, very critical as you move forward, especially in the third world. Right. If you want to bring that third world, the developing world, into this discussion in a much more substantive way than we have seen so far, you need all those initiatives, and you need Israel to be, which is a pioneer in many of those areas, to be part of the conversation. And now that Israel is inside ISA, I think ISA's profile has grown, and it's gratifying that something that India has been leading from the front is now gaining traction far and wide, and almost all the countries, irrespective of the regions, are joining the alliance. And I think that as we move into the COP26 negotiations, this has given India a much needed diplomatic heft in those negotiations. So I think by and large, if you're looking at the climate aspect of this engagement, that to me seems very, very critical as the 2 countries map out the future course of action.
Right. Ambassador Arun Singh, take the conversation forward. How do we understand the partnership in strategic terms? India and Israel are strategic partners. In fact, later tonight, there is an important meeting, a 4-way FM foreign ministers level talks among India, Israel, United States and UAE. A lot of expectations from that as well. Help us understand what could we be looking at when these leaders gather?
So first, looking at the India-Israel strategic partnership. So I think, there's been, aside from the technology aspect, there has been cooperation related to counterterrorism. And because that's a challenge that Israel has faced, that's a challenge that India has been facing. And so I think sharing of information, sharing of technologies, so that has been an important dimension. And the second has been in terms of defense cooperation. For quite some time, we have been sourcing some critical technologies and equipment from Israel, which have been very helpful to us. We found them of good technology levels. We found them cost effective. For example, I remember at the time of the Kargil war, we had used some technologies that we had got from Israel. So that's one important dimension. And I think even in the area of cybersecurity, Israel is very, very strong. And there are cybersecurity strengths in India, the cybersecurity challenges in India. You keep hearing about cyber attacks. So that again is an important area of cooperation. Now, talking of the meeting virtually of the 4 foreign ministers of US, Israel, UAE, and India, clearly India has very important bilateral relationships with each of the 4 countries. Right. And the Prime Minister had visited US recently. We've spoken about the exchanges with Israel. And also the relationship between India and UAE has really consolidated over the past several years. There have been high-level visits from UAE. The Prime Minister has visited UAE. The Sovereign Wealth Fund of UAE is looking at investments in India, looking at investment in petrochemical sector, looking at investment in infrastructure, in the strategic oil reserve. We have more than 3 million Indians who live and work in the UAE. So there are a lot of businesses also based in UAE looking at the Indian market. So I think given that India working together with the countries with which it has very strong bilateral relations with a focus on the region, and India has been talking that its extended neighborhood includes West Asia. And you talk of Act East, you also hear of Think West. So as we look at the global flux, as we look at new challenges emerging in the region west of India, I think countries within which India has some convergence of interest coming together, discussing issues is important. And of course, we have to see what emerges out of the first meeting that is going to take place shortly.
Right. Professor Pant, I want to talk a little more about this four-way foreign ministers level meeting that is scheduled in a short while from now. Given that two of the nations, Israel, UAE, are located in what we call West Asia, or the West looks at as Middle East, are we looking at an increasingly important role for India in the region as well?
Well, there is no doubt about it. I think, you know, if you see what has been happening in the region over the last few years, very dramatic developments in a way that were not foreseen earlier. America is, if not retreating, America is not really that involved in the region at this point. At least, if you look at the focal point of American foreign policy, it is moving more and more towards their definition of the Indo-Pacific, which is to the, in our eastern frontier. So if you think of two major important players emerging in the Middle East over the last decade, they've been China and India. And therefore, India's equities in the region have grown significantly, not simply because of oil and gas and energy relationship, but I think, from with UAE, with Saudi Arabia, the kind of cooperation, political, diplomatic, intelligence, counter-terror cooperation that India has been engaged in, that's quite a dramatic shift in India's involvement in the region, engagements with major partners. So I think it's very natural that as India looks and thinks West, it needs new platforms to engage with these multiplicity of partners. And so I think much as what is happening on India's eastern frontier, variable geometries are emerging. I think we will see all kinds of geometries emerging in the Middle East and /West Asia as well. And therefore, this four cornered conversation is going to be very, very interesting and important because this is the first time that it is happening. And I think four major stakeholders are coming together and trying to almost redefine the contours of what a future of Middle East might look like. So it will be an interesting conversation. Let's see what comes out of it. But I think the fact that it is happening and the fact that America and India are both taking an interest in this engagement also shows that as India looks at bolstering its partnership with countries like the US and UAE and Israel, there are new opportunities for India in different parts of the world. And this shows how in the Middle East and how in West Asia things are evolving at such a fast pace that something which was unthinkable is also happening. This kind of a four-cornered conversation was not something that many strategists talked about, but today it is happening. It's operationalizing before our eyes.
Right. Ambassador Singh, unfortunately, West Asia for decades has been synonymous with a region associated with instability. Now, India finds itself in a unique diplomatic position. It has close ties with the Arab world, with Palestine, with Israel, with Iran as well. At a time like that, how do you articulate the role that India could play in the region where seemingly adversaries, each of them individually have a unique and close ties with India?
So I think at the moment, India will have to focus more on strengthening its bilateral relationship with each of the countries. I don't think we are really in a position right now to contribute to resolving their differences.
Right.
That's an area where they need to work more amongst each other. But certainly, if we are able to use the new opportunity to strengthen India's bilateral relationship with the countries in the region, strengthen our economic and other links, then going ahead, I think India's strategic presence in the region and India's ability to partner more in terms of resolving issues would certainly get enhanced.
Right. And finally, Professor Pant, I just want to refer to an interview by Israel's Foreign Secretary that was just published today in a leading daily, and he talks about priorities in the area of food security, water, drinking water, health facilities. These are also priorities that have been for India for a long time, and with Israel's partnership, both the nations stand to gain a lot. If you could refer to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think these are the areas where Israel has shown the way, has led the way in terms of innovation, in terms of technological development, and in terms of showing the world how certain problems can be resolved, whether it is food security, whether it's drip irrigation, whether it is making sure that, even with water scarcity, one can do wonders. And I think that's the kind of technological innovation that India also needs, and I think the world at large also needs. So this partnership between India and Israel becomes very important in showcasing some of these very, very important innovation and technological developments that are emerging from Israel, which are for the benefit not only bilaterally between India and Israel, but also for a lot of the conversations that are about to happen, whether it's climate change or whether it is about the future of agriculture or food security and things like that.
Right. On that note, Professor Harshvardhan Pant, Ambassador Arun Kumar Singh, thanks very much for joining us on Newsnight and sharing your perspective. Moving on, some updates from Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's visit to the United States. During the visit, she met business leaders and highlighted key reform measures launched in India and the robust economic recovery. She addressed a gathering of women entrepreneurs of Indian origin in New Jersey. And speaking at International Banking Seminar, she highlighted the need for international cohesive financial architecture to fight COVID pandemic. Here's more.
Despite the negative impact of coronavirus pandemic on the economy, India remains an attractive destination for global investors. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, who is on a visit to USA, met a number of business leaders to talk about India's reform measures to attract foreign investment. Sitharaman addressed a gathering of women entrepreneurs of Indian origin in New Jersey. Finance Minister spoke on India's robust economic recovery and the road ahead and the opportunities India has to offer to the world. Earlier, Finance Minister participated in the 36th annual G30 International Banking Seminar virtually in New York. The Finance Minister spoke on the panel about financing the commons, climate and pandemic security. She stressed on focused mobilization and equitable allocation of finances and tech solutions to successfully harness the global common good of climate and pandemic security. Nirmala Sitharaman highlighted the need of an international financial architecture to fight the COVID-19 pandemic across the globe. The Finance Minister supported the need of new financial instruments to focus and press forward green initiatives. Finance Minister underlined the need for WHO to be strengthened for a more effective response to new challenges. She stressed on the need to keep open supply chains for vaccine raw materials. Besides, she also held interactions with various other business leaders in New York. The Finance Minister held talks with Ajay Banga, Executive Chairman, and Meebak Michael, CEO of MasterCard. The initiatives in progress towards financial inclusion and digital transformation formed part of discussion. She also met Raj Subramaniam, the CEO of FedEx. The recently launched initiative of National Infrastructure Master Plan Gati Shakti and India having third largest startup ecosystem and unicorn base formed part of the discussion. The Finance Minister also met Ms. Jane Fraser, CEO of Citi. Jane Fraser said that India will increasingly become an important destination of investment for multinational corporations looking to grow their operations. Bureau Report, DD India.
Moving on, the second edition of Naval Commanders Conference 2021 commenced in New Delhi. Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh addressed the naval commanders during the inaugural session. He interacted with them on matters pertaining to national security. Defence Minister stated that as a responsible maritime stakeholder, India supports consensus-based principles and a peaceful, open rule based on stable world order, the vision of Indian Ocean region with universal values of rule-based freedom of navigation and free trade in which interests of all participating countries are protected. Speaking about the rapidly changes economic and political relations across the world, Minister said that these economic interests do cause some stress in relations. Therefore, there is a greater need to maintain peace and stability within the Indian maritime zones in order to boost the trade and economic activities. Defence Minister expressed his happiness to note that in consonance with Prime Minister's vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat, the Indian Navy has already been ahead in the field of self-reliance, indigenization, in shipbuilding, manufacturing of submarines and other equipments. Security forces continue to engage in operations to tackle the menace of terrorism in the Kashmir Valley amidst the rise in targeted killing of non-local civilians in the Union Territory. On Sunday, 2 migrant laborers from Bihar were gunned down by terrorists in Kulgam district. Union Home Minister Amit Shah on Monday chaired a meeting of police chiefs of all states to discuss security situation. Important aspects related to internal security, current challenges and strategies, including Jammu and Kashmir, were discussed during the meeting.
Amid nefarious activities by terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir, the operation by security forces continues to flush out terrorists hiding in forests in the border district of Poonch in Jammu and Kashmir. In recent days, terrorists have targeted non-local civilians in Jammu and Kashmir. On Sunday, 2 migrant labourers from Bihar were gunned down by terrorists in the Wanpo area of Kulgam district. According to the police, 2 labourers were killed and another labourer was injured in the incident. The killings came a day after a Golgappa hawker from Bihar in the Idukki area of Srinagar and a carpenter from Uttar Pradesh working in Pulwama district were shot dead by terrorists in the valley. These killings have been widely condemned.
आतंकवाद की सभ्य समाज में कोई जगह नहीं होती। ये पाकिस्तान के गिनौने मंसूबे हैं जिसके तहत वो जम्मू कश्मीर में बदअमनी और बदहाली का आलम बढ़ाना चाहता है, लेकिन पाकिस्तान को ये मालूम होना चाहिए कि जो नेतृत्व भारत का है उसके दृढ़ निश्चय के चलते और लोगों के आकांक्षाओं के मुताबिक उनको जवाब हमेशा मिला है और वो कभी कामयाब नहीं होंगे।
Condemning the incidents of terrorists targeting minorities and migrant labourers in Kashmir, local youth say that some anti-social elements are trying to obstruct the peace, socio-economic progress and development of the people of Kashmir. However, they will not succeed.
Recent attacks on minority communities, non-local labourers is highly condemnable in all forms, and we all condemn it in strong words. Some vested and trusted elements want to defame our age-old communal harmony, our composite culture, our ethos, our brotherhood. Such elements will never be succeeded in their nefarious desires. We together fight against these anti-social elements.
Meanwhile, BJP has accused the Congress of spreading confusion regarding Jammu and Kashmir. Party spokesperson Sambit Patra said that during the Congress Working Committee meeting, Sardar Patel was allegedly vilified and was accused of colluding with Jinnah on Kashmir issue. The party has attacked Congress top leadership in this matter.
CWC की बैठक में सीनियर लीडर कांग्रेस पार्टी के और CWC के सदस्य तारिक हमीद कारा, इन्होंने कश्मीर को लेकर एक भ्रम का वातावरण बनाया और उन्होंने यह भी कहा कि जवाहरलाल नेहरू ही वो व्यक्ति हैं, हिंदुस्तान के प्रथम प्रधानमंत्री, जिन्होंने जम्मू कश्मीर को हिंदुस्तान में इंटीग्रेट किया, जबकि सरदार पटेल वह व्यक्ति है जिनकी भरसर कोशिश रही कि किस प्रकार से जम्मू कश्मीर को हिंदुस्तान से अलग रखा जाए। जब पटेल को इस प्रकार से विलीफाई किया जा रहा था, when Sardar Patel was being vilified in the CWC meet, did Sonia Gandhi, the president of Congress party, and Rahul Gandhi object to it?
In the midst of the latest security situation in Kashmir, Union Home Minister Amit Shah on Monday chaired a meeting of police chiefs of all states to discuss the security situation. Important aspects related to internal security, current challenges and strategies including Jammu and Kashmir were reportedly discussed during the meeting. Heads of central police forces and security agencies also participated in the meeting. Before the meeting, the Home Minister also paid tributes to the security personnel who were martyred in various operations. With Rajneesh Tripathi and P. Sudhakar, Bureau Report, TD India.
Meanwhile, Jammu and Kashmir administration signed a memorandum of understanding with Government of Dubai for real estate development, industrial parks, IT towers, multi-purpose towers, logistics, medical college, super speciality hospitals and more. Union Minister for Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal highlighted the significance of the day and said that with the signing of the MOU with Dubai government, the world has started to recognize the pace with which Jammu and Kashmir is traversing on the development bandwagon. The MOU gives out a strong signal to the world that the way India is transforming into a global power, Jammu and Kashmir is having a significant role to play in that as well.
पूरे विश्व को भारत के ऊपर आज विश्वास है कि भारत बहुत अहम भूमिका निभाएगा भविष्य में विश्व व्यापार में उसका एक प्रतीक के रूप में आज ये MOU दुबई सरकार और जम्मू कश्मीर शासन के बीच तय हुआ है और एक पड़ाव है जिसके बाद मैं समझता हूं बड़े रूप में विश्व भर से लोग जम्मू कश्मीर में निवेश करने के लिए आएंगे.
And Jammu and Kashmir Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha said the Union Territory is enthralled with the emerging investment opportunities. He said that the amount of investment coming to the region is more than expected.
अनुमान हम लोग कर रहे थे कि 30,000 करोड़ का इन्वेस्टमेंट आएगा, लेकिन आज जिस तरह का उत्साह इंडस्ट्री के लोग दिखा रहे हैं और जो प्रपोजल हमारे पास आए और जिस तरह से आज साहब आए, मुझे लगता है कि ये कहना मुश्किल होगा कि 60,000 करोड़ होगा कि 70,000 करोड़ होगा.
An investor from Dubai, Sultan Ahmed bin, expressed happiness over getting the opportunity to invest in J&K.
We are very pleased about the MOU agreement to cooperate. DP World is very involved in logistics and transportation in India, more than anybody else with the experience in the business. We are committed to connect Jammu and Kashmir to the rest of India. We know how to do that, we know the obstacles, and today I think the Made in India initiative will apply to here, and you will see many products coming out of here to the world.
And Union Minister Piyush Goyal also met delegation of industrialists from the Bali. The industrialists apprised the Minister of local issues being faced by the industry people. There were thorough discussions on bottlenecks in export of Kashmiri shawls. There was also discussion regarding the new industrial package and the need to extend the package to existing industrial units to ensure their growth. The minister assured the delegation of all possible support from the central government for promotion of local industries. And in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, the exchange of fire between security forces and a group of terrorists hiding in the woods of Bhata Dhuria in Mendhar subdivision of border district Poonch resumed today with the 8th day at the break of dawn. In the gun battle so far, 9 army soldiers, including 2 JCOs, have attained martyrdom. As per inputs, 3 to 4 terrorists are engaged in the gunfight. Paratroopers were inducted on Saturday to take on the heavily armed terrorist hiding in the forest. However, security forces have also detained 2 persons for allegedly providing logistic support to the terrorist and are being questioned for more details. And Minister of State for Science and Technology Dr. Jitendra Singh said that India's future growth depends on science-driven economy. Addressing an interactive session on role of research, technology and startups in blue economy at the inaugural session of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav Week organized by Ministry of Earth Sciences, Dr. Singh said, under leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, while India commemorates 75 years of independence, it is also an occasion to plan for the next 25 years with conscious realization that science and technology are going to be the main currency for the inclusive growth of the nation.
The startups are also the new initiators, and blue economy also to an extent is a new initiative in the government of India and also in the realms of scientific endeavors. And as I said, as we go through the 75th year, the next 25 years, science and particularly so the earth science, which is a relatively a younger stream, is going to be the main currency for the inclusive growth of India.
Some rain and weather updates now. Heavy rains on Monday lashed several parts of North India, including Uttarakhand, where multiple casualties have been reported in rain-related incidents, while a red alert across 10 dams was issued in Kerala due to incessant downpour. In Delhi, national capital, meanwhile, the month of October this year has been the wettest since 1960, when the city recorded over 93 mm of rainfall, according to the data shared by the IMD. Here's a roundup.
The Met Department had issued a red alert in Uttarakhand for Monday. The effect was also seen in Chamoli, Badrinath and Uttarkashi Gangotri Dham. Badrinath and Dharchula in Kumaon division witnessed the season's first snowfall. The Char Dham Yatra has been halted due to rain in many parts of the state. Schools across the state were closed as a precautionary measure for Monday. Meanwhile, 3 people died and 2 were injured after the roof of a house collapsed in Pauri, Lansdowne. 1 person has also died in Champavat. Home Minister Amit Shah spoke to the Chief Minister and inquired about the situation. Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami visited the control room in Dehradun and later spoke to the District Magistrate of Pauri and the District Administration of Rudraprayag. The State Cabinet Minister assured that the state is fully prepared to deal with the possible threat of rain.
सारे विभागों को हमने अलर्ट मोड में रहने के लिए कहा है। 24 घंटे जो हमारे जिले के हैं, प्रदेश के आपदा कंट्रोल रूम हैं, उनको भी सबको जिला स्तर के अधिकारियों को लगा रखा है और आज सभी जिलाधिकारियों के हम संपर्क में हैं।
The effect of the western disturbance was also visible in Delhi and NCR region on Monday. The capital and adjoining areas experienced intermittent rain throughout the day. The city also witnessed massive traffic jams due to the rain. The Met Department has said there is a possibility of rain in the eastern part of the country and in the northeast by October 21st.
अभी एंटायर नॉर्थ ईस्ट इंडिया में जो आप क्लाउड मास देख रहे हैं, इसके प्रभाव है और इसमें सबसे ज़्यादा प्रभाव पड़ने वाला इलाका है उत्तराखंड एंड वेस्ट यूपी, जहां हम रेड कलर वार्निंग दिए हैं। एक्सट्रीमली हेवी रेनफॉल ऑलरेडी पास्ट 24 आवर्स में हो चुका है और नेक्स्ट 24 आवर्स में यहां एक्सट्रीमली हेवी रेनफॉल हो सकता है।
On the other hand, the formation of a low pressure over the Arabian Sea and the departing monsoon has wreaked havoc in the southern state of Kerala. A total of 26 people have lost their lives due to rain landslides in Kotayam and Idukki in Kerala. In Kotayam, a house collapsed after being hit by the Malimala river. The water level of a total of 10 dams of Pathanamthita, Tresor, Idukki in the state has reached alarming levels and a red alert has been issued. Ndrf teams will be deployed in low-lying areas to deal with any emergency situation in case the water is released from Khaki dam at Pathanamthita. Meanwhile, the Sabrimala pilgrimage has been postponed. There is a risk of landslides due to heavy rains. A total of 184 relief camps are being run in the affected districts of central Kerala and across the state. Chief Minister Pinaray Vijayan held a high-level meeting to review the situation and assistance being provided to the people affected by the disaster. The CM also assessed the damage to properties, including crops. Colleges and higher educational institutions will now be opened in the state on October 25th. Bureau Report, DD India.
And heavy rains continue to lash Delhi and the National Capital Region for the second consecutive day on Monday, leading to waterlogging in several parts of the region. India's Met Department has predicted the situation to improve in the next 12 hours. DG IMD also issued a red alert for western Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand. A low-pressure system over Bay of Bengal will cause rainfall till October 21st over eastern part of the country and also in the northeast.
Incessant rain has been taking place in many parts of the country, and to talk more about that, I have with me DG IMD, Dr. Maha. Sir, we have seen the last couple of days, especially in Kerala, the situation turned pretty bad. But we have been told by the IMD, the latest bulletin, that things are improving gradually. What is the latest on that?
Yeah. The heavy to extremely heavy rainfall, whatever has occurred over Kerala, that has been because of the low pressure system which was lying nearby to Kerala. That has become unimportant yesterday itself, and therefore rainfall has significantly decreased. And from the satellite picture also you can see that there is not much convective cloud except some northern parts of Kerala. So light to moderate rainfall can occur today, and no heavy rainfall is expected over Kerala.
And also, sir, IMD has issued a red alert for Uttarakhand and Western UP. What is the situation in here? We can see the convecting clouds here.
So whatever is happening over northwest India, especially Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Punjab, Haryana, Chandigarh, Delhi and UP, West MP and East Rajasthan, it is mainly because of a low pressure area which is centered over southwest Madhya Pradesh. And at the same time there is a western disturbance, very active western disturbance, which is now located over Afghanistan to central part of Arabian Sea across Pakistan. This cloud mass is associated with the interaction of this western disturbance and the low pressure systems. So as a result, there has been heavy to extremely heavy rainfall activity over Uttarakhand and West UP, and there has been heavy to very heavy rainfall activity over Haryana, Madhya Pradesh and adjoining areas of East Rajasthan. So we are expecting that today there will be also heavy to very heavy rainfall at a few places and extremely heavy rainfall at isolated places over West UP and Uttarakhand.
So low pressure area has also been found here in the eastern part of the country. What is the latest on that?
A low pressure area lies over coastal areas of Gangetic West Bengal and neighborhood. Under its influence, you can find out convective cloud mass over Jharkhand and Gangetic West Bengal and adjoining Odisha. And there is also very strong easterly winds penetrating towards the Gangetic plains from Bay of Bengal in association with this system, and also the low pressure area of southwest Madhya Pradesh. So what we expect actually, heavy to very heavy rainfall is likely over Gangetic West Bengal and heavy rainfall over Jharkhand and adjoining North Odisha during the next 24 hours. From tomorrow onwards, there will be activity over East UP and Bihar. Heavy rainfall can be expected, and southern West Bengal and northeastern states also will get heavy rainfall activity on 28th and 21st.
And so that was DG IMD and Maha telling us that red alert has been issued for both western UP along with Uttarakhand, but the situation is expected to improve significantly in the next 24 hours. With camera person Mohit Joshi, this is Tapush Bhattacharya, DD India, Delhi.
Some updates now on the COVID situation in India and the vaccination drive. Vaccination in the country is fast approaching the 100 crore mark. Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia said India is just steps away from administering the 100 crore vaccine doses. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi congratulated Uttarakhand for administering the first dose of vaccine to all its eligible population.
The fight against COVID-19 continues, and vaccination stands as the most robust weapon to fight the pandemic worldwide. The Union government is committed to accelerating the pace and expanding the scope of COVID-19 vaccination throughout the country. The number of COVID-19 vaccinations is fast approaching towards 100 crore mark. So far, COVID-19 vaccination coverage has crossed 98 crores. Union Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia tweeted and said that India is just 2 more steps away from the 100 crore mark. The Health Ministry is confident that the administration of 100 crore vaccine doses will be achieved within 1 or 2 days. The Health Ministry has also prepared itself for the big day. On the other hand, states and union territories are also leaving no stone unturned to speed up their vaccination process. Uttarakhand has administered its first dose of COVID-19 vaccine to its entire eligible population 3 months ahead of the target. Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami said a total of 74 lakh people in the state have been administered the first dose of the vaccine, while 34.68 lakh have been given the second dose. Congratulating Uttarakhand on its major achievement, the Prime Minister said, "Many congratulations to the people of Devabhoomi. This achievement by Uttarakhand is very important in country's fight against COVID-19. I am confident that our vaccination campaign is going to be the most effective one in fight against global pandemic, and people's participation is very crucial." BJP President JP Nadda also congratulated Uttarakhand. In a tweet, he said, "Uttarakhand has administered first dose of corona vaccine to every adult citizen. I congratulate the people, health workers and government of Uttarakhand for this achievement." Under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi, India's vaccination campaign is the largest and fastest in the world. With the ramping up of vaccine administration across the country, the cases of COVID-19 across India are also projecting a downward trajectory. According to the Health Ministry, 13,596 new cases have been recorded in the last 24 hours, which is the lowest in 230 days, whereas 19,582 patients have recovered in the last 24 hours. The latest figure now shows that the recovery rate currently stands at 98.12%, which is the highest since March 2020. With the latest developments showing improvements in the cases of COVID-19, the schools are also gradually opening. In Goa, after state government's direction, schools have been reopened for classes 9th to 12th. And the school authorities are also strictly following COVID-19 protocols.
We have taken the entire, as per the SOPs which are laid by the government, we are taking every care to see that the students are safeguarded. Proper sanitization every day, previous one day before we do the sanitization. We have given the permission to start with 11th as well as the 12th offline exams. I have distributed the work so that there will be no crowd will be at one time.
India's fight against COVID-19 is strengthening each day with increased number of vaccination doses as well as people's active participation in the vaccination drive. Bureau Report, DD India.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate Kushinagar International Airport on 20th October. The international airport will get operational this week to ease cumbersome travel of earlier times and facilitate air travel requirements of international Buddhist pilgrims in the country. The inaugural flight will land at the airport from Colombo, Sri Lanka, carrying some 125 dignitaries and Buddhist monks, highlighting the convenience to Buddhists across the world to visit the Maha Parinirvana Sthal of Lord Buddha. The Airports Authority of India, in its continuous endeavour to upgrade airport infrastructure in the country, has developed Kushinagar Airport with new terminal building spread across over 3,600 square metres at an estimated cost of 260 crore rupees in association with Government of Uttar Pradesh, considering the demand of domestic and international visitors and pilgrimage. The new terminal is equipped to handle 300 passengers during peak hours. Kushinagar is an international Buddhist pilgrimage centre where Lord Gautam Buddha attained Maha Parinirvana. It is also the centre point of the Buddhist circuit that comprises pilgrimage sites at Lumbini, Sarnath and Gaya. The airport will help in attracting more followers of Buddhism from home and abroad to Kushinagar and enhance development of the Buddhist theme-based circuit in the country. Union Minister for Chemicals and Fertilizers, Manduk Mandavia, announced that Centre has increased the subsidy on fertilizers. The subsidy on NPK fertilizer has been increased from Rs 900 to Rs 1,015. Further, Prime Minister Modi has given Rs 28,000 crore subsidy on fertilizers in Rabi season to benefit the farmers. The move will help farmers purchase fertilizers at the same rate despite the hike in their prices in the international market.
दुनिया में वर्तमान समय में खाद की कीमतों में बहुत बढ़ोतरी हुई और हम कई खाद इंपोर्ट करनी पड़ती है, लेकिन किसान के हित में मोदी जी ने फैसला किया कि देश में सब्सिडी बढ़ाई जाएगी और खाद की कीमत नहीं बढ़ाई जाएगी। उसको देखते हुए डीएपी में 1650 रुपीस सब्सिडी बढ़ाई गई, यूरिया में 1500 से बढ़ा के 2000 रुपीस किया गया, एनपीके में 900 से बढ़ा के 1015 रुपीस किया गया, एसएसपी में 315 सब्सिडी थी उसको बढ़ा के प्रति बैग 375 रुपीस किया गया। कुल मिला के रबी सीजन में 28,000 करोड़ रुपया मोदी जी ने किसानों के लिए खाद की सब्सिडी के रूप में दिया है, जैसे कि किसानों के पर अनुचित बोझ न आए और किसान खाद खरीद सके।
China's economy has hit its slowest pace of growth in a year in the third quarter, hurt by power shortages, supply chain bottlenecks and major wobbles in the property market and raising pressure on policymakers to do more to prop up the faltering recovery. Data released on Monday shows gross domestic product GDP grew at 4.9% in July-September from a year earlier, the weakest clip since the third quarter of 2020 and the missing forecasts. Despite the drop in growth, government there says it is confident that the targets will be met. The world's second largest economy is facing several major challenges, including the China Evergrande Group debt crisis, the ongoing supply chain delays and a critical electricity crunch, which sent factory outputs to its weakest since the early 2020, when heavy COVID-19 curbs were put in place. And U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has said on Monday that Washington was closely watching China's development of advanced weapon systems, but declined to comment on a report that it had tested a nuclear-capable hypersonic missile. Austin was speaking at a news conference during a visit to Georgia. However, Chinese Foreign Ministry said on Monday that China had tested a space vehicle in July, not a hypersonic missile. And Colin Powell, former U.S. Secretary of State and top military officer, died on Monday at the age of 84 from COVID complications. His family revealed in a statement Powell was a prominent figure for decades. He served 3 Republican presidents in senior posts and reached the top of the U.S. military as it was regaining its vigor after the trauma of the Vietnam War. In 2008, he broke with his party to endorse Democrat Barack Obama. Powell endorsed Democrats Hillary Clinton in 2016 presidential elections and Joe Biden last year against Donald Trump. Some sports update in T20 Cricket World Cup group stage match between Group A's Ireland versus Netherlands. Ireland hammered Netherlands to seal an emphatic 7-wicket victory with 29 balls remaining. Camphor's astonishing 4-wicket haul came in the 10th over of the innings after Netherlands had won the toss and chose to bat first in the match 3 of the tournament. The Dutch got off to a nightmare start with opener Ben Cooper run out from his first ball. Delaney's powerful knock of 44 from just 29 balls featured 5 fours and 2 sixes before he fell to Pieter Sila. Fittingly, it was Camphor who hit the winning runs, knocking a single off the first ball of the 16th over and leading Team Ireland towards the victory. The qualifying teams will join Super 12 that will kick-start from 23rd October in UAE and Oman. And with that, we conclude this edition of Newsnight. Namaskar.
गरीब को सस्ती दवाई मिले,